up this morning with the sunrise in my eyes. My rock's sweeter, meet the one I love. I don't know how, don't know why, I've been toasting all my life. Oh, it's sweeter, I've been toasting all my life.
Welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntosh, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Live Penguin TV. My name's Megan and I'm going to be your host tonight as we watch the world's smallest species of penguin, our little penguins, coming out of the water, crossing the beach and heading back to their burrows tonight. And tonight is night 3 of our Meet the Team series, where this week we will have a special guest on each night for our live Penguin TV, who we'll introduce in just a moment. But also joining me tonight, I do have Michael. So Michael, come on in, tell us what you'll be doing tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be watching the YouTube and Facebook sites for any questions you might have for our special guest tonight. So I'll let Megan do a bit more introduction on that one.
Thank you, Michael. So yes, send through all of your questions on Facebook and YouTube. Michael will be picking some of the best ones to ask myself and our special guest tonight. So we will be talking all things seals tonight. So if you have any seal-related questions or questions for our special guest, send those through. We will be also have a range of monitoring the questions on Facebook. So we will be trying to get back to as many questions as we can on Facebook as well. Now, before we introduce our special guest, I would just like to say Waram Jika to Milau, which means welcome to Phillip Island in the language of the Bunurong. And the Bunurong were the first people here on Phillip Island. They've been coming here for thousands of years, caring for this beautiful country that we're looking out onto and watching these beautiful penguins on tonight. So I would like to acknowledge the Bunurong and their elders past, present and emerging as the custodians of the land that I'm watching from, and I think that our special guest is watching from, and the lands that any of you might be watching us from tonight as well. And we do already have a few penguins on the beach hanging out, you can see just there. And we are Phillip Island Nature Parks bringing this stream to you tonight. And we are a self-funded non-for-profit organisation. So I do want to thank you for watching tonight and meeting some of our team members here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, because we don't just look after the penguins and manage the penguin parade, we look after over 20% of Phillip Island. So that includes our Koala Reserve, Churchill Island, many of our beautiful beaches, wetlands and woodlands, including a colony of about 20,000 Australian fur seals. And that is where our special guest tonight spends a lot of her time and a lot of her energy is studying our Australian fur seals and seals all around Australia and around the world. So tonight we're going to be joined by Dr. Rebecca McIntosh, our marine biologist. So I'm going to pop Beck up on the screen. Welcome, Beck. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you. So Beck, as our marine biologist and seal expert here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, can you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do here?
Yeah, sure thing, Megan. So I'm responsible for monitoring the Australian fur seals out at Seal Rocks. So Phillip Island Nature Parks have the management responsibility of that site. And we use the Australian fur seals as a top predator in the ecosystem. So if they're healthy and everything's going well for them, then we know that the ecosystem underneath them is doing well also.
So they're kind of similar to our little penguins in that respect. They're one of the top predators out there that act as an indicator species for the rest of our marine environment.
That's right. And I like to think about I've been out on Seal Rocks and there's been a lot of rain and bad weather and all that brown slick that comes off Seal Rocks, and I think, well, maybe that's feeding the food that feeds the penguins as well.
A bit of fertiliser.
Yeah. Top down and bottom up.
Yeah. And how do you get into working with seals, and how do you come to be here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, Beck?
Well, I've always loved wildlife, always wanted to work in the ocean. I think always felt sorry for my parents actually as soon as I turned 16 and I made them sign, my diving ticket, and they didn't know why I wanted to do that, but they were very supportive. And basically I just love anything in nature and the ocean and wanted to work in conservation. So I did my undergraduate at Melbourne University, and then after a few years off, PhD at La Trobe, working on the Australian sea lion in South Australia. And I was there for about 7 years. And then I fell in love and moved to Ballina and had a couple of children of my own. And then the job at Nature Parks came up, and it was always a place I'd been watching, because it's one of the very few places in the world where you can do research and not have all those extra pressures of academia and teaching and everything else. It's a wonderful position. And because of the tourism that funds some of the core research, it's very reliable, and it's a wonderful place to do that long-term monitoring that's so hard to get done otherwise. But without it, we just don't know what's happening. So it's a fantastic place to work, and it was always somewhere where I wanted to work.
That's fantastic. We do have a fantastic team here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, and it sounds like you get to really focus on the wildlife and on the seals. And we're really lucky that just by guests coming here to our tourism destinations like the Penguin Parade, the koalas, Churchill Island, all that, those ticket sales go right back into that work that you're doing, into that research.
Absolutely.
And the conservation and the education to learn more about our natural environment and teach people about it. And we do also have the Penguin Foundation, so if you can't come out and buy a ticket to help contribute to the work that we do here, we do encourage people to donate to the Penguin Foundation. And we always say each night that you can adopt a penguin, but I was looking on the website today and you can also adopt a seal. So if you're watching tonight, you want to make a donation, donate by adopting a seal.
And it might come up again later, or we might just chat about it now, but the Penguin Foundation actually purchased the first drone we got to do some of the seal research. And they were also the members of the foundation, were the people who helped us build our citizen science program. So it's a wonderful foundation to be part of.
Yeah, and then you know that your money's going right back towards that conservation. We can see the result of that funding as well. And you do have a lot of different ways that you study the seals, Beck, and you do have to go out into the seal colony, out onto seal rocks. Oh, and there's a nice big group of penguins. Oh, that's a nice big raft.
You never get sick of it, ever.
No, I'm the same, and each night is different. And that reminds me, before I go too far, we do have people each and every night who want to know how many penguins came in the night before. So I had Branny guess last night how many he thought came in, and he guessed, I think it was about 2,400. I can tell you that he was way off. Would you like to have a guess, Beck?
I'll say 1,284.
You're definitely closer than Branny. Michael, can you tell us how many penguins we had last night?
Yeah, we had 822 last night.
Yeah, 822. It was a bit of a slow penguin night, but most of our penguins now are getting ready to molt. So we'll probably see a lot of big chunky penguins coming out of the water and crossing the beach.
I love it when they come in just before the molt and they're so fat that they fall over. That's still one of my favourite things.
A lot of us, I think, agree that it's hilarious when they are so fat they can't even walk and they're just pulling themselves along the beach with their flippers. Yeah. Maybe kind of like a seal.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the phocids, like the elephant seals and things that just wriggle on their bellies.
Yeah, that's kind of like what some of our multi penguins might look like tonight. That's a nice big group. And I've gotten off track now. We were going to talk a bit about how you go out to seal rocks and monitor the seals, Beck, and what do you do out there and what's that like?
Well, we always have to balance the research we're doing and the questions we're asking and the way we answer those questions with the disturbance we could cause out there as well, because it's such a privilege to be able to work with these species. And so basically we go out every 2 months to seal rocks in a Zodiac, a little inflatable boat, and we have to take a mother vessel, and it's wonderful here on Phillip Island. The Victorian Fisheries Authority, they often take us out on the mother vessel, which is just fantastic. And we've got one little pebbly beach where we land, and there can be up to 8,000 seals on seal rocks at any point in time.
Wow.
And so when we land, historically, over thousands of years, humans have been their main predator. So they still don't like seeing us turn up on their colony, and they're not as good out of the water as they are in the water. So when we land, they all run from us and try to get into the ocean. And that's one of the main chances we get to catch any seals that have plastic around their necks, any entanglements. So we have to act fast something's...
Yeah, we just had a goose that I think flew across and gave the penguins a bit of a fright. So, just as you're talking about the seals getting scared back into the water.
And that's exactly what happens with the seals too.
Yeah,
so we have that first opportunity to catch the entanglements. And then once we're ashore, we just be really calm and quiet and move carefully around the colony and cause as little disturbance as possible. And it's some of it's not so glamorous, because one of the best ways to work out what the seals are eating is to collect their scats, which is a polite word for poo. So
don't worry, we talk a lot about poo on live Penguin TV. Mostly
it's a wonderful
penguin
resource.
It is. It tells us so much. And
basically, the seals are, they're basically sampling the whole ecosystem for us, because they can travel several hundred kilometres to find food. And they're out there fishing for us, and they bring it back, and they lay these lovely little presents on seal rocks for us to collect. And then Ruby, who's a volunteer and a consultant with us, she works through those samples, and we work out what they're eating from the hard parts, so the ear bones of the fish and the beaks from the squid and the octopus.
Wow, and she can tell the different types of fish just by their ear bones.
Well, not all of them we know, because most of the fish we know about are the commercial species that are also harvested for fisheries. So not every fish we know what their ear bone looks like, but there's quite a few that have been identified by the museum and by other projects. So we do have a little library to help us.
Wow, that's so impressive. And I know we do a lot of penguin poo collection as well to see what they're eating. So like you said, it's a great resource to see what's going on, not just with our penguins, our seals, but to see what's going on in the ecosystem. Do you have any good poo stories? I know our wattle watchers who are watching every night, they love to hear a bit about poo.
Well, it's a funny thing, because when you take someone who hasn't necessarily been to a seal colony before, a new student or somebody, they're always a bit like, oh, you're collecting poos, okay. But by the time you've picked up a few, you really get your eye in. And when you see a really lovely one, it's something pretty special, and everyone gets a bit excited when you see a lovely, fresh, nice, well presented poo. It's really something we get enthusiastic about.
I love it. And I think we share that across the organisation. I know collecting penguin poo is the same. You find a nice sparkly little sample, and even when we're out doing bandicoot trapping.
The long-nosed fur seals are the greatest. They're very polite seals in the way that they'll move off their favourite rock to put it away from themselves, and sometimes lay this beautiful cable just down the side of the rock. It's absolutely lovely. The sea lions, Australian sea lions, they're a bit messier because they've got gastroliths in their stomachs and they grind everything up. So they just lay these big puddles, which are not so pleasant. And you have to use DNA to know what they're eating, because you don't really get any hard parts out of their poo at all. Wow.
So you work with a few different species of seals. Can I ask if you have a favourite, or is that like asking if you have a favourite child?
Yeah, no, I will go there. I'll be brave. So I have, my favourite seal is the Australian sea lion. They're what I did my PhD on, and they're the most unique mammal in the world, really. They have an aseasonal breeding cycle that only happens every 18 months. So in their lifetime, they don't have as many pups as other seals, but they put a lot of maternal care in, so they'll suckle their pup. They'll feed their pup for 18 months as well. So they work really hard for those. And they seem to be real problem solvers. Just when you think you've got them worked out, they'll do something new and interesting. And they're real tricksters. I've seen juvenile sea lions hide and wait behind a bush until a group of tourists go down at Kangaroo Island, and then jump out in front of them all and give them a terrible fright. So they're really fun to work with. Wow,
they kind of have personalities, kind of like we feel like the penguins have personalities sometimes.
Yeah. All the species are different, but then within every species you also get unique personalities. Yeah.
Sorry, Michael, do you have...
Yeah, sorry.
I think you can see my child every now and then in the background.
All good. We all know the
benefits of working from home.
Yeah, everyone's probably experienced that from time and time again. Do you have a question for us,
Michael? I had something just to follow on about talking about the species. One of the questions was, how many species of seals do we actually have in Australia?
So we have 3 that breed in southern Australia: the Australian sea lion, the long-nosed fur seal, or the New Zealand fur seal, and the Australian fur seal. But then in the sub-Antarctic and Antarctica, we've got more species. So there's Callum. Cal, are you going to sit there quietly?
Hello. We don't just have one special guest tonight, we have 2.
Yes. And then you've got southern elephant seals, crab-eater seals. I think there's about 8 or 9 off the top of my head. Yeah.
Wow. And
Leopard seals, which visit every now and then.
And which seals do we kind of get around here, and what ones do the penguins have to look out for?
So we have Australian fur seals living out at Seal Rocks. It's the largest colony for the species in Australia. And we have long-nosed fur seals in Bass Strait as well, which do include little penguins in their diet, but they'll eat most seabirds that they come across, so it's not exclusively penguins. But we think it's majority just the subadult males that are targeting the little penguins, but they share a lot of food. So the long-nosed fur seal will feed off bait balls of fish and things the same as the penguins do. So I think they're coming across each other in the ecosystem. Yeah, whereas the Australian fur seal are benthic foragers, same with the Australian sea lion, and they feed more off the bottom of the ocean, and they're eating lots of leather jackets and octopus and things like that.
Yeah, so they don't kind of come into contact with our penguins too much.
No, not as much. Yeah.
Do you have another question, Michael?
Yeah, just to follow on with this one. Yeah, I just want to check in while we're.
Go for it.
One of the questions was, what is the difference between a seal and a sea lion? Is there any difference?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So there's fossid seals, which are also called true seals, and they're the ones like your elephant seals and your leopard seals, the things in Antarctica. And they kind of wriggle along their bellies, and they've got most of their propulsion when they're in the water comes from their rear flippers. And then you've got your Otaridae, which are your eared seals, and they're your fur seals and your sea lions. They've got little ears, and they walk on their fore flippers, and they can run really fast too. So if you work on seals, you've got to be able to run fast. And then there's the walrus, which live in the northern hemisphere. So in terms of fur seals and sea lions, the sea lions, most of the species are struggling more with their conservation. They're often bigger, often more aggressive, and they've got really square, kind of blunt noses, whereas the fur seals are usually more pointed in their noses.
Wow, great. That's really interesting. And you were talking about having to be really quick to catch the seal. So when you go out to Seal Rocks, is there any kind of physical requirements that you need to be able to go out there? And is there any times a year where you just can't go out?
Yeah. Well, basically, in the past, seal research was often more something that was done by men, but it's certainly something I think that nothing can stop you doing what you want to do when you have a dream. And basically it comes down to, I think, your personality. I think to work on seals, you do need to be a bit brave, and you do need to be quite confident, because if you have to catch a seal that has a tracker on it or an entanglement on it, sometimes you have to crawl quietly through the colony with seals all around you. And it's kind of, I call it thinking like a rock. If I think like a rock, then I am a rock, and then they don't see me. And sometimes you have to set a trap for them using other people or other things. And it's a bit, because you've got to try to get that one animal that has that plastic on its neck or that tracker on its back. So then when you need to finally run, you have to not at all think about what your feet are doing. You have to completely commit to what you're doing, because in my mind, I've already caught the seal. I've already succeeded. It's already happened, and it is in my net, and there is no other option, because if you start to think about your feet or whether you're going to slip on the rocks or on the seaweed, then that will become your reality. So I think confidence is important, visualization is important, and then it also comes down to your equipment. So I've specially made nets that are super light. They've got zips in them so that when the seal is in the net, I can use the zips to access the bit that I need, and I can let the seal out the front of the net so that it's much safer for the seal and for me. So I think a lot of it's about being smart about how you do your work as well.
Yeah, it really...
And then you can always bring people in if you think you do need a little bit. I mean, I'm pretty strong, but you think if you do need a bit more strength, you can easily bring that in.
Sounds like you really mastered the art of seal catching.
Well, yeah, you have to.
And how often do you head out to Seal Rocks, and what do you... So you're looking for entanglements, collecting poo. Is there anything else you're doing while you're out
we
there?
also count the birds and survey the birds out there. We monitor the health of the colony, so we don't go out during the breeding season. So during the breeding season, the males are holding harems, and they're very aggressive and territorial, and they keep the females in a certain there's probably a combination of female selection going on and male territoriality. And basically you don't want to upset that, because you don't want to muck with the genetics or the relationships that are happening between the seals and disturb them. And when the pups are really small, they're only like 6 kilos and they're really fragile. You don't want to cause a stampede or anything and have any pups getting squashed. So we don't land at all during the breeding season. We use a drone to fly surveys during the breeding season, which is fantastic. And then we go out at the end when the pups are several weeks old, and we measure and sample 100 pups to check their health and their body condition and see how they're going. So yeah, we've got quite a few things going on, and we have students too that work on various research projects as well.
Yeah, so you have a lot going on when you go out there. And then you mentioned how you fly the drone over. So can you tell us a bit more about that? And there's a little Ricali running across through the penguins.
Oh, cool.
There you go. Oh, and a wallaby.
Oh, man. Yep. It's all happening.
Yeah, I very easily get distracted.
Oh, there's a wallaby too. Oh, no, it's fantastic.
A wallaby, Ricali, and a goose all amongst the penguins. But yeah, I was asking you about the drone and the images you get from that and how you use those.
So we fly the drone over every 2 months as well, so that we can compare data with the surveys we do in person while we're learning about what the technique is telling us. And we also fly about 6 times during the breeding season. And what we can learn from that is when the peak of pupping happens, we can look at pup births versus pup deaths and look at how many females are feeding pups versus feeding their juvenile from the previous season. So with all that information, you can get a good idea of predicting into the future what the population is going to look like. You know, if you have a lot of pup survival, then you know that year in another 3 years' time, when those females come to breed themselves, you'll probably have quite a few females breeding. So it gives you a really good way of predicting what's happening in the future. And what we have done with Seal Spotter as well, which is one of the most fantastic things about it, and we use the Penguin Foundation to help us set up the portal, is we've built a portal called Seal Spotter where anyone in the world can get on and count the first seals for us. Us, because I'm hooked on it as well. But,
I was going to say, I've definitely had a go at Seal Spotter, especially when we were in lockdown. Going on counting some seals is great fun.
Thank you. Well, it's so terrific for many reasons. One is that we are able to share the load of collecting lots of data. So basically every image we put on Seal Spotter gets counted roughly 5 to 10 times. And then we can, over all the images, we can see if there are any really full-on ones, because every now and then we get an excited person draw a penguin in the water or something for us with dots, which, you know, it's not quite counting the seals, but we appreciate the artistry.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure we don't count images like that in our final tally. But basically, we exclude the images that aren't representative of the seals, and we compare them to some of my counts. Because I'm considered an expert counter, and we've tested that to make sure, just in case I'm over enthusiastic. And,
I'm sure we could all trust you to count the seals.
And it's wonderful because the citizen scientists are really good at counting the seals, and we can get great data from that, and year after year compare the breeding seasons, whereas in the past we were only able to do a survey roughly every 5 years, because it was highly disturbing, and it was also expensive, very expensive. So the problem with a survey every 5 years is you really have no idea what's happening in between those surveys. So if something changes, we don't know what it means, and you don't know if it's an unusual event or if it also happened last year or So if you're getting a survey every year, you've got a lot of confidence in your information.
Yeah, that's great. And it's something that, like you said, anyone can do from home. So if you're watching right now and you want to help us, help us count seals, go onto the Nature Parks website. You'll find the link to the
big
seal
shout out
portal.
to Ross Holmberg, who, you know, he wrote the code, and together with many people and some of our citizen scientists who are really enthusiastic, and the Penguin Foundation helped us set it all up. So big shout out to everyone who's been involved so far, because it's definitely a team effort.
Yeah, Ross is absolutely fantastic. We've had him very early on. I think he was one of our first guests that we had here on the live stream. He does some incredible things that I can't get my head around.
Well, takes a team. Takes a team.
Definitely.
Things have got so complicated these days. You've got to collaborate and work together, and that brings out the best in everyone.
Yeah, and getting the community and all you water watchers and everyone watching on board is fantastic. And when you're counting seals on Seal Spotter, so you're counting the adults and the pups, and what do you do if you see an entanglement, Beck?
Well, there's a classification. So on the side of the screen, we've got 4 categories, and so one of those categories is for entangled seals, and so you can click that, and then what we do afterwards, because it can be a little tricky sometimes to pick up an entanglement, if it's got bright green trawl net or something from a commercial fishery, you see that quite easily. But if it's a really thin piece of recreational fishing line or plastic, it might just look like a roll of fat. So we ask people to click anything that they think is an entanglement, and then we have people trained to validate those images. So they go back through them and they say, I'm 50% sure that might be, might not be, or I'm 75% sure, or 100% sure. And basically anything over 75% at this stage we say is an entanglement. But we also use the surveys from being there on site every 2 months to help validate as well. And we're monitoring that over time, because if you can imagine going out every 2 months, I'm always taking entanglements off, and it feels like a Band-Aid, and we've been training Ben Thomas and Roger Whitelaw to come out as well from Ranger Team, and I think they feel the same, that there seems to be never an end to it. So we started working with the commercial fishing industry, the Southeast Trawl Fishing Industry Association, and we've started a Bins on Boats project to put specially designed bins on the fishing boats to try to collect some of those fragments before they end up in the ocean by accidental means, if a big wave comes over or something like that. And what we can do with the data from Seal Spotter is track over time whether projects like that are being successful.
Yeah, so you can see if it's making a difference.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. And is there anything that our watchers, just people at home, if you're not a commercial fisherman, maybe if you're a recreational fisherman, is there anything that our watchers can do to help try and stop those entanglements?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the plastic that ends up in the ocean is from urban sources, so it's washing out of our rivers, or it's coming off our beaches, things like that. So the more you can reduce how much single-use plastic or throwaway plastics you have in your life, the better, basically. There's some very useful plastics that are in cars and our computers and things like that. But, you don't really need to use Glad Wrap to wrap your sandwiches. You don't really need to use cups to have a coffee in, and plastic bags at the supermarket. So if you can have your own systems as much as possible, then that helps reduce straws. But, we find things like even caps, they're little caps from your head. They've got plastic rings in them that make them nice and strong. And so if you're fishing and your hat blows off, try to get it back, because I don't really want to take it off a seal when it's been stuck around a seal. Packaging, that the ribbon that people use to tie to balloons and to package presents, that's really terrible stuff, and it cuts. You don't need to use it. We don't need to let balloons go. We don't need to wrap presents in ribbons like that. So it's about replacing those things as much as possible in your life.
Yeah, balloons are definitely a big one. We find them all the time down here on the beach at the Penguin Parade, and just really easy things that you don't, like you said, you don't need to use, that we don't need to have in our lives. That
put rubbish in the bin.
Exactly. If you see something on the beach or just down the street, all of our drains, rivers lead out to the ocean. So just picking something up and putting it in the bin is something really easy that we can do.
Anything that forms a ring of any kind can end up entangling birds or seals or penguins, shearwaters, hooded plovers.
Yeah, everything. We've seen a lot of masks in our penguin habitat lately. So if you're throwing your mask in the bin, cut the straps, and if you have it with you, trying to keep track of it as well is something.
Try to get one that you can wash and reuse.
Yes, definitely. Well, we might. I think there's definitely more penguins coming in tonight than we had last night. We might see if there's any more questions.
But maybe I will be close.
Maybe.
I am an expert counter, and I was counting cicadas when I was a kid.
Well, you
used to draw numbers on their backs and see if they came back the next year. I worked it out.
Wow, that's very impressive. And you actually have worked with our penguins a bit, haven't you, Beck?
Yes. So when I was first employed at the nature parks, I was doing a project with Peter, Dan, and Paula and Leanne, and we were putting trackers on penguins and exposing them to the wand used for the Peter's working on a magnetic particles project to try to take oil out of feathers if there's ever an oil spill. So we were just making sure that the wand we used to take that powder back off birds, making sure it didn't affect their foraging at all, because there's research to suggest that penguins might use some sort of magnetism to find their way around in the water. So we were testing birds with the real wand and with a fake wand, a cardboard wand. And their foraging patterns didn't change. They were the same.
Ah, that's fantastic. Now we have a great tool that we can use in the event of an oil spill that we hope we never need. But
that's right.
Yeah, fantastic innovation.
So a lot of fun nights out there with Paula and Leanne, getting trackers back. And it was pretty funny. There was one night where Leanne had seen the penguin with the tracker, and I was still a bit green. She's like, "Go get it, Beck!" And I was trying to had my head torch, and I was trying to find this penguin amongst the others. I did get it, but yeah, I think Leanne had a bit of a laugh.
She was getting you ready for your future seal chasing.
Well, I've been working on seals already for 15 years by that point.
Well, there you go.
Penguins were new for me.
Well, we might see. Do we have any questions, Michael?
Yeah, we've got plenty of good questions.
Plenty of questions for Beck.
Yeah, we've got lots of good feedback as well. They're loving your stories as well, and the messages that you're putting through, Beck. So
great.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, everyone.
So we've got a couple of questions. I'll just chuck in two, just so they're kind of short questions. Not? So how many times a year do the seals breed, and how much do seals eat each day?
Well, the seals breed once a year, so they have one pup every year, and there's never been twins. Females have to work really hard. They're always feeding a pup, they're always pregnant, and they're always having to feed themselves and support all three as well. So they work very hard. So if you see a seal on the beach and you think it's being lazy, no, it's very tired. And that's why we say leave them alone, because they really need to rest.
Being a full-time mum sounds difficult.
Yeah. And so in terms of how much do they eat a day, I can't answer that question, but I would imagine it could vary a lot. How's that for a scientific answer? But what happens with seals is when they come back and they lay their scats on the colony, it's probably only represents the last few days of their foraging. And I think they probably can lay up to 3 to 5 a day. So they probably eat a fair bit. There are some models out there that have estimated how much they're eating, but I just don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
And also just another question. Sorry.
Okay, go for it, Michael.
Just another good one. How old are the seal pups when they learn to swim or forage for themselves?
Yeah, good question. Well, the pups, they're really funny when they're learning to swim. And that sometimes the females have different techniques of teaching their pups to swim as well, because they're not born knowing how to do it. So they start to go in rock pools when they're about 3 weeks old, and just playing around in that. That's why rock pools and things in breeding colonies are really important. They're safe places for them to learn. And then they start playing together and getting really rough as they get more confident. But they molt out of their what we call the nugo coat, their brown coat, between 2 and 3 months of age. And when they've got their nice new silver coat, then they're waterproof, and they can start to supplement their diet from their mum with fish and little bits and pieces they find around the place. So by 6 months of age, they're definitely starting to feed themselves as well as rely on their mum's milk, but they're not able to be weaned until they're 10, 11 months of age.
Great.
Wow. Great. There's lots of good seal questions coming through. It sounds like we have a lot of people really interested in what you do and interested in the seals, Beck. So for anyone who wants to get into marine science or wants to work in the marine environment with whether it be seals or penguins, do you have any advice for people wanting to get into the field?
Absolutely. I think determination, if you have a passion and a dream, just stick with it and work hard. My path to getting where I am wasn't straight. I had some little dog legs and curvy bits in there. So I think just follow your dream and be determined and take as many opportunities as you can. Everything I've done, I think, has all added up to where I am now. So even those jobs where you wonder why you're doing this, between research jobs, I've been a professional cleaner. I've done all sorts of things, but it teaches you discipline and it teaches you how to organize your time. And so every opportunity you take is really important. But if you can, when you're at university, if you can try to get as many volunteering positions, volunteering can start sooner. We have a volunteering program here at the nature parks. So getting that experience of hands-on and seeing science in action is really valuable.
Yeah, certainly. We talked a lot about that last night with Branny as well. A lot of people, for a lot of people, volunteering is that step in the door to get that experience, to get into these sorts of roles.
And I think don't be nervous too about showing up and introducing yourself to people. I was a bit shy sometimes and didn't always put myself forward. And I think just go for it. What are you afraid of? You're going to get a yes or you're going to get a no, and it's more likely you'll get a yes. So if you don't get a yes the first time, keep trying. Try at least 4 times before you think that it's really over. For any one person, keep trying.
That's some great advice. And we are coming towards the end of our live stream tonight. It's gone pretty fast. So before we do start to wrap up, Beck, is there any last messages or anything you wanted to say to our guests before we finish up?
Yeah, I think I've got 2 things really. And the first one is I challenge you all, and I'd love to know that you all could go out somewhere into nature, somewhere really beautiful that you love, and immerse yourself in it and connect, because I really think sometimes that we're losing that, or we're just reducing that connection we have to country and to where we live and how we're part of the ecosystem. We're not just observers, we're not just here to use the world we're in. We are part of it, and everything's connected. And the things that we do matter, and they have repercussions. So I would really love everyone to get out into some nature in the next couple of days and immerse yourself and connect. And I think that would be beautiful, and to feel that. And I would also like people who are living on traditional lands to learn more about the traditional owners of the place where you live, work and play. I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, no, that's really lovely, and we're very lucky here on Phillip Island on Millau that we have so many beautiful places, and it's quite special that we get to share it with people through things like Live Penguin TV. So even if you can't come visit us just yet, you can see the penguins, and by watching tonight you're learning a little bit more and hopefully building on that connection with nature.
Absolutely.
Tonight
you protect what you love.
Exactly, and I think we all love penguins here, and now hopefully everyone loves seals.
Hope so.
And even if you live in the city, I'm sure you can find a little pocket of nature, a little park, a balcony, a garden where you can help build that connection as well.
Yep.
So that's really, really lovely. So Michael's got his hand up. Do we have another question before we head off, Michael?
Before we give our signature huck off, some people are really wanting some seal sounds.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot. We always have the penguin sounds, and I know Beck does have some great seal sounds up her sleeve.
Okay. That's the Australian sea lion female. Australian fur seal female.
That's great.
Antarctic fur seal.
It almost sounded kind of like a penguin.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's awesome.
That's
I
fantastic.
could keep going, but we're running out of time.
Great excuse. No, that's so fantastic. I'm going to have to learn those ones. I've been practicing my penguins. Michael got me making goose noises, seal noises. That's fun to add to the repertoire. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Beck. It's been fantastic having you on and learning a little bit more about the seals. And for everyone watching from home, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you've enjoyed watching the penguins while we've been learning a little bit more about Beck and what she does here, and a little bit about our seals and our Australian fur seals and other species that we have around Australia and in the sub-Antarctic. If you do want to help out with the work that we do here, you can come and visit us. We're loving seeing everyone's beautiful smiling faces out here at the penguin parade, the koalas, throughout the island. You can go out to the knobbies and look out to seal rocks, bring your binoculars, and you might even be able to see some seals out there. And if you can't do that just yet, you can help us out again by donating to the Penguin Foundation, which goes right back into the work that our researchers like Beck do. And jump on Seal Spotter, help count the seals. Give Beck less seals to count, even though she loves it.
I do.
Help make sure that she's counting them correctly. Double check all of those numbers. Get on Seal Spotter. You can do that any time of the year, and then there are certain times of the year where we'll have a Seal Spotter challenge. So keep an eye out on the website for any Seal Spotter challenges that I don't know might be coming up.
Probably around June, I think.
Fantastic. So keep an eye out for that. And we will be back again tomorrow night on Live Penguin TV. And we will have Jessica McAllison, our conservation manager here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, joining us. So we hope to see you all again on Live Penguin TV tomorrow. Get your questions ready for Jess. And thank you again so much for joining us tonight, Beck.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So I think you've heard that we usually finish our Live Penguin TV with our signature huck off. So I hope you haven't gotten too rusty on your penguin calls over
never.
the years. No? So you ready to say goodbye and give us a bit of a huck?
Sure.
Bye, everybody.